Cardinal Richelieu is one of the most influential figures in the history of France. Often simply called Richelieu, he was the Catholic cardinal who served as chief minister during much of the reign of Louis XIII. Some historians actually credit Richelieu as being the real power behind the throne during that period, a ruler in the practical sense of using his power to further his agendas, which were numerous and extensive. Clearly, he used authoritarian measures to enforce his policies and maintain power. Certainly his role and intentions are questionable. Was he a patriotic supporter of the monarch or a power-hungry cynic? Alexandre Dumas chose the latter interpretation in his novel The Three Musketeers, in which Richelieu is painted as one of the main villains, unscrupulous and power-hungry to the core. Nevertheless, Richelieu is an honored historical figure in modern France, recognized by scholars for his ideas of a strong nation-state and aggressive foreign policy, which, for better or worse, is the basis for how the world is run today. The case of Cardinal Richelieu is one of the most peculiar in this reincarnational series, because although numerous individuals receive life readings indicating a past life association with him, there is no reading for the individual himself. So we shall have to content ourselves with the portrait painted of him in the several cases that we will consider in this section. Richelieu was a strong patron of the arts, which apparently included the performing arts and entertainment, as noted in some of the readings for individuals who were said to have been associated with the cardinal in past lives. For example, a reading for a 36-year-old woman described a past life as Isabel during Richelieu's rule. Isabel was an entertainer, close in touch with those in power, serving both Richelieu and the king, Louis XIII. She gained and lost during that experience, gained early in the sojourn and lost later in taking sides and becoming so one-sided as to cause madness that destroyed her mental abilities. In her modern life, she carried over an innate dislike for two-sidedness. Apparently, she had witnessed some major hypocrisy during that past life with Richelieu. Her reading also noted that she carried over abilities as an actor, who could portray many roles, and especially those pertaining to her past life experiences during Richelieu's rule. Through acting such roles mindfully, she could come to know herself, for in knowing self, one finds God. A reading for a 40-year-old writer described a past life in which she had lived as Jane Helene, an entertainer in the king's court during the early portion of Richelieu's rule in the land. She brought both consternation and satisfaction to many people, while serving in the role of go-between between the king and Richelieu, or as her reading put it, between the ruler in fact, the king, and the ruler in mental abilities, Richelieu. She gained and lost during that experience, gained in keeping confidence that was given to few, losing, particularly in the latter portion of the life, when she tried to please everyone, allowing the good to be evil spoken of. Obviously, there was much gossip and axe grinding among the various individuals and factions with their own agendas. In her modern life, she carried forward an innate ability to counsel with people at various levels and speak to groups as one with authority. A reading for a 5-year-old girl described a past life in France as Agathe during the rule of Richelieu when she was in the cardinal's household. And yes, the reading does emphasize the power to rule that Richelieu wielded at that time, but perhaps to some extent that is simply a reflection of the subjective perspective of Agathe as a servant to a powerful man. She provided entertainment to Richelieu and his guests during that sojourn and was an attendant to him when he was ill. In addition to physical healing, she ministered to the needs of many who were disconsolate, sad, weak, and broken-hearted. The urges carried over into her modern incarnation were both good and bad, as they were in that past life. The desire to nurse those who are ill, yet also desiring a high position for self in that administering. In terms of religious influence, Richelieu appears to have favored ritual and formality, as would be expected for a Catholic cardinal. This is confirmed in a reading for a 35-year-old housewife that described a past life as Sister Elserine, who was close to Richelieu. He was portrayed as a pompous ruler in his earthly glory and in the exalted position that he held. Sister Elserine gained during that period through religious service of a very ritualistic, dignified nature, which carried over as an innate urge in her modern life. A reading given for a 35-year-old man described a past life as Cicérael, a cardinal who served under Richelieu. Cicérael experienced many changes during that sojourn, and came to feel doubt within as to the application of spiritual laws in the material realm. He seems to have become uneasy or uncertain about Richelieu, a religious leader with tremendous power who also played hardball politics. Cicérael did gain through the experience through friendships he made. Yet in his modern incarnation, he carried over an innate urge to both doubt and trust in friendships, doubting the word of individuals unless their actions supported their talk. Apparently, he became very concerned about the hypocrisy of those in authority during his past life with Richelieu. The theme of institutionalized hypocrisy is echoed in a reading for a 31-year-old man that described a past life in association with Richelieu's rule. Neither name or position was provided for this individual, except to note that he was among those of high church estate. Despite his lofty position, he did not keep his religious vows due to the disappointment he felt from Richelieu's application of church principles in the lives of others. The reading noted that he often laid aside his religious red hat for the clown's cap. His disdain for hypocrisy during that sojourn carried over into his modern life as an innate reverence for the principles of right, but disdain when the actions of others did not match what they professed. The use of knowledge from many sources was one of Richelieu's most powerful tools in administering the nation. He set up a vast network of spies and informants to keep abreast of what his numerous enemies were planning, which may be relevant to a reading for a 46-year-old woman that described a past life as one who served in the court of Louis XIII, when Richelieu was in real charge. No name was provided for that sojourn, only indications of the dissension that was caused by the intrigues with courtiers, presumably involving gossip and rumors. Apparently, she must have learned from that experience, because in her present life she carried over an innate feeling of the knowledge of such conditions, with the ability to restrain or use knowledge in the correct way and manner. For knowledge is power, and Richelieu understood power. We will now consider one final case of a past life in association with Cardinal Richelieu, this one with a very curious inference of dark forces and manipulation. A reading for an 18-year-old woman described a past life as Katrina during that period when Richelieu ruled with the greater strength. The reading noted that Richelieu often went seeking the counsel of Katrina, who burned incense, odors, and fire to gain information for her clients. She gained and lost during that experience, gaining in the understanding of how to use such influences, yet losing in the application of same in her influence over men. The negative, manipulative nature of that past life carried over as a karmic influence in her modern life, which may be used for weal or woe. She was advised to use her previous knowledge to overcome her karma through service to others, especially in the use of the herbs aloe and myrrh. As noted previously, it is rather curious and unusual that this soul group is so well represented without a life reading for Cardinal Richelieu himself. That is very strange indeed. Perhaps the individual who was Richelieu in the past life simply never sought out Cayce for a reading. Or perhaps he did, but never requested a life reading that would identify such a past life. Or maybe he received a life reading, but the past life, as Richelieu, was not listed because he could not put such information into constructive application. Or perhaps he was simply not incarnate when the rest of that soul group came to Cayce for their readings, which would have been very unusual in itself. At any rate, the information provided for the individuals of this soul group who did receive readings is clear in asserting that Richelieu was the practical ruler while serving as cardinal and chief minister to Louis XIII. But there was considerable hypocrisy, manipulation, and misuse of power associated with Richelieu's rule, affecting the past lives and future incarnations of those who participated in his agenda. From a strictly historical perspective, Richelieu's successes laid the foundation for the next king, Louis XIV, who continued Richelieu's policies, creating an absolute monarchy and suppressing the aristocracy. In essence, Richelieu's contributions were an essential prelude to Louis XIV's reign as the most powerful monarch and the most powerful nation in Europe during the late 17th century. And yet the dark side of Richelieu's contributions carried forward as well, as we shall soon see.